If your building has parking underneath, it might be dangerous in an earthquake. Let's focus on the building and examine why. If it were rigid but not attached to the ground, an earthquake would just shake the ground back and forth underneath it like this. But since it is attached to the ground and the lower story is not rigid, an earthquake yanks the bottom part of the building over like this while the upper story is left behind. If the shaking is at just the right rhythm, the ground would move back and forth underneath while the upper story stays still. But the shaking is usually at an uneven rhythm, and the upper story will rock back and forth farther with each seismic wave, with the result seen here in an earthquake lab, or here in real life, or this, notice the car. For a better outcome, your engineer might recommend installing a moment frame. Here's a model of a soft story building. Put a moment frame in an opening and now it braces your building against earthquake forces. Unfortunately, it makes your garage opening a lot smaller, and it's disruptive and expensive to install. Going back to our real building, say we install a moment frame. It will be attached to a large concrete footing dug into the ground, so that when an earthquake hits, the moment frame will be pulled back and forth as the ground moves. As the moment frame moves back and forth, it yanks the building back and forth with it. It pushes and pulls with enormous force, perhaps 50,000 pounds. That force can't be applied to one small spot, or it would just break the materials there and become useless. To spread out the force over a large area, many connectors are added from the moment frame to the building structure. Now the force is applied in small amounts at each connector. This may require tearing out large areas of stucco or siding. It is difficult and expensive to install and leaves a big patching and painting job. To review, a moment frame takes up a lot of space in your door opening. It requires a large and expensive concrete footing to support it, and many bothersome and expensive connections above it. Luckily, now there's a better solution. It's called the Magnitude10 brace. The secret of the Magnitude10 brace is the flexible part that absorbs the movement as the ground shakes underneath. Here's one being tested in an earthquake lab. You can see the bendable part moving back and forth. By allowing the upper story of your building to move more slowly while the ground shakes underneath, it spreads the forces out over a longer time. This makes the forces smaller. For example, say an earthquake would produce 50,000 pounds of force on a regular moment frame for 1/5 of a second. The Magnitude10 brace spreads it out over a whole second, so now the force is only 10,000 pounds. You need a lot more steel to withstand 50,000 pounds of force than you do for 10,000. That's why the Magnitude10 brace can be so compact. Here's one that's been installed. That small square column behind the round pole contains a Magnitude10 brace. It uses less space in your door opening compared to other systems. Plus, you'll save thousands of dollars on the installation. A Magnitude10 brace needs a much smaller concrete footing, so you save on both excavation costs and the installation of new reinforcing bars in concrete. It requires much less strengthening above it, and often does not require tearing apart the wall. Estimates from recent projects show moment frames to be 33% more expensive to install than Magnitude10 braces, sometimes much more. Another significant benefit of using a Magnitude10 brace will be experienced after a quake. The Magnitude10 brace may require only a small repair, where 3 easily accessible bolts must be removed in order to replace this part. Relatively quick and easy. Meanwhile, your neighbors who had the misfortune of installing moment frames will have to tear apart their walls and ceilings to gain access to 40 or more hard-to-reach bolts. All these bolts on both sides and both ends of the moment frame must be taken out in order to replace those orange pieces. And that is if they have the kind of moment frame that has replaceable parts at all. Most moment frames must be entirely replaced at huge expense. It's not just the cost and time for repairs at stake. Until these repairs are done, you may find that the authorities will attach a notice like this to your building and not let you go back inside. So, save room in your door opening, save a lot of money now, and save money and move back into your building sooner after an earthquake. Tell your engineer and your contractor that you want to use a Magnitude10 brace in your soft story retrofit. It's available in sizes appropriate for little one-car garages all the way up to big multi-unit apartment buildings. Magnitude10 braces have undergone full-scale laboratory tests showing that they meet international performance standards. They have secured a code evaluation report by an independent certified accreditation agency. This report meets all International Code Council requirements for acceptance by building departments across North America.